So just wanted to make sure everybody's on the same page. I'm going to our famous GitHub repository, day 3, and I have published the exercise there, right, with all the steps required and with some of the things that you guys have to have in mind while you're doing the exercise. There was a few gotchas, uh, but within this repository, everything is working smoothly. But let me split my screen for a second. Okay, now you should be able to see my screen, right? So this is the exercise I was talking about. This is where you're going to be creating one environment. We have a existing training model that was trained outside SageMaker with Pytorch. And our challenge here is going to be, I'll not say challenge, but to go through this exercise, right? To kind of implement a container that's going to be serve a PyTorch model for inference, right? And here is are all the contents of the solutions. This is really important because it provides the steps and all the assets required for you to understand what is happening behind the covers, right? Under the covers. So the first thing, if you go here, you're gonna find there is a script that is pretty much uh, building a new container locally, and then that pushes that to ECR. We have a Docker file which contains all the libraries we are requiring. We have the data folder that contains the test images because this is a PyTorch training model that we evaluate a few images and provide which class they are, right? Which class they belong to. This is a very simple one. The purpose is not to explore the complexity of the model because it's a very straightforward, it's a very simple one. But the purpose is to understand what is behind, right? So take a look at this image classification. It contains all the steps. I'm going to provide you more details later, but for now, just for the sake of time, I want to ask you guys to go to this step right here. Run CloudFormation template. Okay? Just copy link address using, make sure you are using the US East one. Okay? And you should be seeing an interface for creating the stack. This is really straightforward. You don't need to change anything. Let me double check if this is really a brand new environment. Just bear with me. Yeah, it is. Nothing there. Nothing's there. Okay, beautiful. You can keep the things the way as they are here, right? And for extra large, the bucket name could be this one, the prefix. Click on next. You don't need to change anything. Just make sure you select I acknowledge that AWS CloudFormation might create IAM resource for with custom names. So we all know that this is very straightforward. And click on create stack. It should take like just a few seconds. It's going to be creating the lambda function, Cloud9. That's going to be the IDE that we're going to be using for this exercise, and which is, by the way, the next step. Let's wait a few seconds until we see, yeah, looks like we are all good to move forward. Now I'm gonna go to the Cloud9 interface. As we have here, just click on the button Open IDE. Okay, should be good to move forward. Just adjust the window right here. And this is the terminal that we're going to be using during the exercise. So what is next? Let me maximize here. Step number 2. We're going to copy, we're going to pretty much clone our most famous GitHub repository of the year. And it should include all the assets. And these are the kind of the steps that are a bit different. I just made some tweaks. Let's go to this directory right here, to this folder, and then resize the EBS volume by simply running this command to 100 gigabytes. Should take a few seconds. Okay, okay, so let me double check this one. Okay, 100 gigabytes the disk has right now, which is really good because we're going to be downloading an existing image, right? There are 2 steps here. So for now, I'm going to explain the next step, but just for the sake of time, we are going to download a pre-built image with Pytorch and push it to ECR without having to build a new image from scratch. And then we're going to be, and we will make some adjustments and tweaking that during the lab. So for now, you just need to do this one, download and push. Copy this, just paste here. And now this process should take 15 to 20 minutes. So it's time to grab some coffee, to relax a bit, until we can see all the data properly downloaded so that we can move forward with the lab. So we are back, and I just wanted to make sure everybody is following me. I wanted you guys to not do this one, but do the download and push for the sake of time, right? That's pretty much gonna download an existing image, and we are gonna be publishing to ECR, and that's the one that we are gonna be using for inference. That's a container which contains Anaconda and a few other libraries, Python and a few other libraries to use PyTorch. Okay, so going to the top, the first step is one of the most important ones because it's pretty much determines what's going to be or what your container is going to look like. So you have to install all the dependencies as well as the Python and under and all the dependencies, pp command and all the libraries required. So that's why we are using Miniconda 3 because it encapsulates all the thing, wraps everything for the to do something more straightforward and straight to the point, we are using FastAI and installing a few other dependencies. That's the first thing we gotta understand, right? And within this Docker, notice that we have this image classification directory, right? So these are the 4 files you gotta have within your work directory. So here is how it works. You got a point within your Docker file. Which one are you gonna be using, right? And you need to copy that directory within this specific path. So this is kind of the function, kind of the structure of the signature and the structure you gotta have in place to make sure the SageMaker is gonna be able to invoke this container when either a training request or an inference request is being called by a client, for example, right? So getting back here to the image classification, once again, this is the proxy for Nginx. We have to implement a serve, but at this point we don't need to change anything. So we're going to be using the this Python code as it is. We can use from the sample. The one that we are going to be changing is this one. That is a predictor. So uh, whenever a client calls the endpoint, that's these are the functions that you're going to be calling. We have to implement two methods. The first one is to ensure the container is up and running. We have to implement this ping. And the invocations, this is a method, right? A post. And we need to implement that. And this is the one that's going to be used whenever SageMaker calls the container for a prediction, right? Just so you know, we're going to kind of tweak this and change and update to the ECR, just so you know. But again, let me go back to the my terminal. Okay. And if you guys run Docker images, you're gonna notice that we have one here that is pointing to ECR. Okay. So let's go to ECR right now. Repositories. And here we go. That's the private repository we have for this uh, particular process. Remember, this is not a training model. We have only inference. We are not doing training because, uh, as I told you before, the model training was provided as part of the container. Okay? This was trained outside, and we embedded this within the structure. And why this is important? This is important because when you go to the predictor, you're going to notice that we need to load this training model. And it's using the Pico, that is a popular framework for object serialization training model. Let me maximize. If you unzip this file right here. Oh, I'm sorry. The one, the model, you're gonna notice that we have a PKL file extension that is the trained model, right? Just so you know. Getting back to here, we have the image published to ECR. So what is next? We are gonna create a model, right? We are gonna create, we have a model, but we are gonna reference that. We have the image, the Docker container published to, available within ECR, and we have the S3 endpoint to reference within our model. So let me copy this URI, okay? And let's go to SageMaker. Just getting back to the, just so you can follow along. We created a CloudFormation template, Cloud9, downloaded everything, the container, and now we need to create the model, right? I'm gonna go back, yeah, just before doing that, let me copy the model to S3, the model, and because we created something and I was almost forgetting to. So we are at this point right now. S3, S3 bucket, okay? And for now, there's nothing. Basically, I would recommend you to change this within a text editor, okay? Just bear with me, just updating that. So super straightforward, easy peasy. Find and replace. Replace region with US East 1. And we need to copy the account number.
Andre, I don't think we can see your notepad.
You can see what? Oh no, yeah, I'm just doing in a different screen. So right now I'm just doing this, right? So I recommend you to copy this portion and just replace the region and the account ID. Sound good?
Thank you.
No problem. Just bear with me. Okay, all good. So I'm gonna just copy a few samples for doing some inferences, a few images, right? To determine which class of object that image is. Okay, let me go back to the terminal and then I'll start copying that to S3. It's a glass bottle, and then I will copy the others. After finishing that, if we go back to the bucket once again, you should be able to see these two folders, data and model, right? So that's the one we are going to need to create a SageMaker model that was created outside.
Sorry, can you go back to your Cloud9 terminal? Sorry.
Yeah,
Um,
I basically copied this. I'm copying a
uh-huh.
few local files, right? So go back here. You're gonna notice that we have a data folder which contains all the things, and we have a model folder. Basically, I'm copying from the local to S3 by running these four commands on my right.
Okay.
Make sense?
Okay. Thank you. Um, so the region and the account ID
US is
that,
in the account. You should copy from here.
yeah, that's the one. Actually, we need to use the full, not the account ID itself, but the full with the at the rate. Is that right? Or
Just
the,
replace a region with
yeah,
one. With
global?
US is one, and your account, the account that you replace this portion right here with your
Okay.
account number, and that's it.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I did, and it's not working. So
Yeah,
let me. Maybe there is something typo. Okay.
because if you go here, see, actually that's the name of the bucket, right? So it has a prefix, then the region, and finish it with the account number.
Right.
That's why.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Okay. We are copying, so we should have a few images, and of course we're gonna uploading more just to play with the model. Okay. But at this point, what I want to do is to move to the next step. Remember, we should go to the ECR as well. Let's go back once again there. Click on the repository name, and then when this screen pops up, the thing you gotta do is to copy the URI. That's gonna be the link for your repository. Okay, let's go to SageMaker now. So we have the training. So we don't need a training. We don't need to create a new training process. So basically, we need to point to existing model. So the first thing we're gonna do is to create a model. So we are exactly at this point. Models. Okay. Scroll down. I will basically copy the same name to make things easier. I will copy this image classification recycle. I will create a new row. And then this is the most important thing. At the bottom, I'm going to select all to use a single model because that's where our model is. And I'll be pointing to the URI that we just copied. Make sense? Take a look here. So this is the URI from the ECR. just using the latest tag. Okay. So next step, I'll go to the S3 and the model folder. I'll click on this model and I will copy the S3 URI like this one, okay? And I go back to the SageMaker and point to this model. And I'll leave the other as it is. Create model, and that's it. So I pretty much finished this steps here. We are right here. We just finished this step. Okay. The next one will be creating an endpoint configuration on SageMaker. That should be straightforward. Let's go to endpoint configurations. I'll create a new one. I'll use the same name just to make things easier. Let's go to configuration name. And the only thing I need to do at this point is to select the model we just created. Just for the sake of easiness and for the sake of time, that's going to be only one instance, and you can leave all the other steps as the standard configuration. So I'll click on the button. Okay, and the last step is to create the endpoint, because that's going to be the way our clients would be able to consume this model, right? So let's go to endpoint. I will give the same name once again. Create endpoint. And I will select the configuration we just created. Okay. And click on create endpoint. If everything goes well, this step is about to take like 3, 4, no more than 5 minutes, right? In the meantime, what I want to do is that I wanted to switch gears to the next step, which is going to be the client, right? So the Lambda function. Go to the Lambda function. Let me open up this one real quickly. Go to the Lambda function. Then you're going to find this call SageMaker endpoint image classification. And here is the Python code. Really straightforward. There is a reference to a few environment variables. And this is the first step we need to do. We need to point to the right thing. So click on configuration, environment variables, and let's edit both the bucket name and the SageMaker endpoint name. So the bucket name is right here. So here's the bucket name. This is the one we want. Okay. And for the endpoint name, is here creating, but that's the name we want. Save. Okay, the process is still running, but I wanted to kind of dive deeply into the container once again while we are waiting for the endpoint to be created, to be up and running. So I'll ask you guys to go to the terminal once again. This is not in the steps. Of course, I can add more descriptions if you will, if you need. But let's go back here. Docker images, right? So here are the containers. So here is the one we just created. And let's say I wanted to get into this container. So let's do some Docker run. And let me connect to this one. So now I'm inside that container we just created. And remember, the work directory is LPT program. This is exactly where those 4 files and the FastAI framework is installed, right? And if you take a look, by the way, let me change a few things here. Let me install a text editor. Um, so to make our life easier to review the files and change as needed. Okay, all good. So let me go back to the files I wanted to show you. So remember, we have this predictor, right? At this point. And this is the one we can eventually change if needed, right? So remember those environment variables, the temporary folder, data folder, where we are picking up that data, and this is the standard signature, right? And if you go to the bottom, that's the method that is called when this source code is calling the model, right? Invoke endpoint calls this one. This is very straightforward, right? So we can kind of tweak this and upload if we need it. Let me see if I have the model up and running. It's taking some time. It's likely to be completed soon. Let me see if everything is with the model. It's pointing to the right file. Yep, all good. So far, so good. Still waiting. That's the image. Okay, and let me go back here. In the meantime, let's move to the lambda function. If you run that at this point, that won't work. But anyways, let me create a new event, test event. and let me use this JSON. That's going to be used to test the process. It's taking longer than I was expecting. But anyways, that's no problem. In the meantime, one thing that I wanted to do while the model is still being created is that I wanted to change this a little bit, right? So I will just change this and show how to do that. I will enable this one. I will comment this, and I will be, no, not this one, the return. Return, I'll be using like and that's gonna be my new file, my new predictor, just so you know, right? Let me go back to and what happens now? Basically what I need to do is to do a Docker PS to see the one I just created, right? Because that's gonna be my new one. So what I need to do is basically do a Docker commit and copy this container ID here, just put an add here, and use the same URI. Let me go back to the ECR. What is that? What is that? Okay, should be here. Copy URI. And I'll be using this one. All good. So now there is a new one that became the latest at this point, right? And basically what we need to do is to do a Docker push, right? Okay, so before doing this change, just switching gears a little bit. Uh, everything is running, so which means the endpoint can start serving requests. And if you run this for the first time, we should be seeing, hey, this is a glass of bottle, right? And let me change this for a second. I'm gonna be using just one, and I'll call this IGS entry point, right? Save. I will go back to the lambda function, and I'll call this entry point because that's the same name I gave. I will deploy this one, and I'll test. Oops. Entry point. Let me call this entry. Okay, that's a glass bottle. So I can go to Google, for example, here, trash paper, for example, maybe whatever. Let me pick up this one, for example, and just save image, trash paper, could be whatever. I will simply copy this to the S3 bucket right here, data. We upload a new file, add files, and this one, paper. Oh, good. So going back to the process, I'll call this as the paper zip, the image file right here. And I will switch this to something different that I just created. And I will test. And here's a paper. Everything is working. So you guys can see the predictions, class, paper. Very straightforward. The process is not this. Now switching gears and getting back to our container.
Why it did not predict as trash?
How it predicted, there was a training model. The training model has the ability to do that.
No, but the training model, it did not
The training
pick this
model
up as
was
trash.
trained with PyTorch outside SageMaker. And then we provided a serialization model, and then we made that available. That's the exercise. We are not putting everything. There are other exercises where we create a single container which includes both with the training and also the inference. This only is only about inference because we have
Okay,
provided the training right here. That's a
I think
training
it.
model. Make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. It's not going deeper actually. What's the whether it is a trash or something? It just inference that it's a paper. Is
Exactly.
that right?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
it's a very simple one. The purpose with that is more to explore how to create your own container.
Okay. It's not actually like I run actually recognition or something. Um, Not like that, right?
No, 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 no.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for the question. So the endpoint is working. It's predicting correctly different images. I can have a bunch of images within this bucket to predict. But I wanted to show you how to. I wanted to show you how to change the predicted the Python that is within the bring your own container we just created, the Pytorch. So we just commit that, and now basically what we need to do is to push the file to ECR. Hey, look, he's updating the new layer because we just changed something. And if we go back to the ECR at this point, we have a new one that became the latest. I should have used different tags. The one became untagged, and now this is the new one. So now the lambda function is pointing to this one, which means that it's going to be serving and maybe providing a different response. So that's pretty much the kind of the exercise. And that's it. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed and see you in the next session. Bye.